Hello everybody, I'm Mickey from Adapt Lab at school. And before we begin, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're going to cover today and why it really matters. So we're going to talk about why AI feels so relentless right now and why that reaction makes complete sense given how human brains actually work. So then we're going to look at the one skill that keeps you steady no matter what tools drop next. Not a technical skill, a human one. And finally, I'm going to show you how to build that skill in a way that feels calm and sustainable so you can stop feeling behind and start trusting yourself again. So by the end of our time together, my goal is that you feel less pressure, more clarity, and more capable of moving forward with the constant noise and pressure of tech change in the background. So let's start. I want to start by saying something really simply before we talk about tools or skills or strategies. AI really feels like it's moving faster than your brain can comfortably track. But that doesn't mean you're behind. You're simply human. It's my helper. And now I say that because I hear the same sentence over and over again from really smart, really capable people. They say, I can't keep up. Every time I open my email, there's a new feature. And every time I open social media, someone's talking about the newest AI tool, the newest update, and they say the tool changes everything. And I constantly hear, I finally figure one thing out, and then there are 5, 10 more. So underneath all of that, I think, is this really quiet, sometimes not so quiet, pressure that says you should probably be doing more. And if any of that sounds familiar, I want you to know something really important. That reaction is so common. It doesn't mean you're falling behind. It doesn't mean you missed the memo, and it does not mean that everybody else has figured out something that you haven't. I think, actually, that it means your brain is doing exactly what it was meant to do. Let's go back to the time I first opened ChatGPT. I felt like genuine awe. This was a few years ago when I first saw it. It was fascinating and powerful, and honestly, almost a little bit magical. And then immediately after that awe, I felt like this deep existential dread and worry. So my brain jumped straight to questions like, how fast do I need to learn this? What else is there? Am I already behind? How much will this technology change our world and our work? And to be honest with you, I hardly slept for a few days as my brain kind of mulled these questions. And that moment really surprised me because I'm really curious by nature. I love learning and I'm not afraid of tech. In fact, I've spent the last 20 years building businesses online, navigating algorithm changes and adapting to new tech. But my nervous system, my very human nervous system, reacted anyway. And I think that's what's happening to most people in one way or another. So that's when I really started paying much closer attention, not just to the tools, but to what was happening inside of us humans when those tools, those new AI tools showed up. And here's what I've learned. So I think most of the stress people feel around AI, not all of it, but most of it, is coming from the way constant, rapid change interacts with our very human brains. So our brains evolved for a very different life than the one we're leading right now. For most of human history, change was slow. The seasons shifted gradually. Skills took years to develop. Cause and effect were very visible. And you could make a decision, see the outcome, and adjust. And you could do this over and over again, just slowly. And your brain is really good at that kind of world. But unfortunately, AI and technology are not moving that way right now. AI moves in jumps, in big exponential leaps. One improvement unlocks another, and that unlocks 5 more, and that unlocks 25 more. And each release leads to new expectations for us. The pace isn't steady, it compounds and leaps. So your brain, your human brain, tries to predict what's coming next so it can keep you safe. One release leads to a lot of anxiety, but the next 5 after, your human brain just can't adapt to it. When it can't make those predictions reliably about what's coming next, it sends a really subtle signal through your nervous system. And that alert might show up as restlessness or as distraction or kind of a low-grade sort of urgency, or as the feeling you should be doing like something, but you just don't know what. And I think that's really common for a lot of people. It's really not a motivation problem. You're not failing. It's not a discipline problem. And it's not a matter of intelligence or effort. It's a mismatch between our human biology and exponential change that we're going through right now. But when you don't really understand and internalize that, you turn the discomfort inward on yourself. Like, people going through this think, I'm lazy, I'm not technical enough, I should be further along by now. Maybe that sounds familiar to you. Sometimes it sounds familiar to me today even. So that internal story we're telling ourselves is really more damaging than any missed update. So I think once you realize what's actually happening, something important shifts. That self-criticism softens. The comparison loses its grip, and you stop assuming that everybody else has it cracked wide open. And that opens the door, I think, for a much better question we should be asking ourselves. If this isn't about keeping up, what actually helps? No human brain can keep up with every bit of technological, artificial intelligence change going on right now. It is really, truly impossible. So most people think maybe the answer is more tools, better prompts, smarter workflows, but tools, I don't think, are the foundation. And the real problem isn't lack of information. We're already drowning in it. The problem is that we need a way to orient ourselves inside of rapid change. Without that, every update feels like a test. Every decision feels really uncertain, and that's what creates the overwhelm. What actually works when everything in the world keeps changing, at least everything in tech? So now that we've slowed things down a little, I want to talk about what actually helps when the pace of change isn't going to slow down. Because here's the truth, AI won't slow down. The updates aren't going to pause miraculously so we can catch our breath as a society and as individuals. The tools will keep evolving, and they're evolving faster and faster. I think the rate of progress is only going to speed up, and significantly. So the question isn't, how do I keep up? That's impossible, honestly. The real question is, how do I stay steady when AI and technology keep moving? So most people start in the same place. Sometimes those better tools and faster workflows you try do work for a while, and they help in the short term, but it doesn't last, because every time the tools change, and tool change is constant right now, the stress comes back. The problem is that there's no framework underneath them. So I want to make this really tangible right now. So let's take a look at how this shows up in real life. I've watched different people download the same AI tool at the same time. One person opens it and thinks, this is amazing. I can use this to support my work. They try one thing, they adjust it, they keep going. Maybe they use it, maybe they don't. The other person opens it and thinks, like, I don't even know where to start. They watch tutorials, they save prompts, they feel behind before they've done anything. So same tool, same starting line, really a very different experience. And what makes the difference is not intelligence, it's not motivation, and it's not even experience. It's whether someone can pause, assess, and decide their next step, even when they don't have all the answers. And that is what adaptability actually is. And I think adaptability is absolutely crucial in the age of AI. Adaptability isn't speed. It's not being early. It's not even being technical. It's having a way to orient yourself when something changes. It's having a framework for orienting new things into your life. Adaptability is staying clear, capable, and engaged when the landscape keeps shifting and nothing at all feels settled. It's knowing how to pause, look around, and decide your next step instead of just reacting on autopilot or reacting out of fear. When people don't have that, a lot of predictable things can happen. They hesitate to make decisions because they think more information will help. They rebuild systems instead of refining them, and they delay launching because the tools don't feel settled yet. And they also second guess choices they've already made. And none of that necessarily looks really dramatic. They may seem pretty functional on the outside, but over time, it will drain energy and confidence. When people have adaptability, the opposite happens. They make decisions faster, not because they know more, but because they trust their thinking. They use tools longer instead of restarting every time something new appears, and they feel less pressure to optimize everything. And they also stay in motion without feeling rushed. So that's the difference I'm talking about. So here's something that I really want to be super clear about right now. Adaptability isn't some soft skill you either have or you don't. It's a set of specific learned behaviors. Adaptability isn't abstract. It shows up in really specific behaviors that require you to stay clear and capable when something is uncertain or shifting. When you're working with AI, that means being able to hold steady when the output isn't perfect yet, to stay engaged when you need to refine, and to so importantly, trust your own judgment, even when the tool doesn't give you exactly what you want on the first try. These are adaptability skills, and they show up in 3 very practical ways. So I'm going to break them down for you, not as concepts, not as theories, just as things people actually do when they're working with AI, and how you can be adaptable with AI. So the first is clear communication with AI. So that's where a lot of people struggle. It's not because they don't know prompts. It's not because they haven't slowed down enough to get clear on what they want. AI will reflect how you think. If your request to it is too vague, the response is vague. If your thinking is scattered, the output feels kind of generic. So people who get really good results don't expect perfection on the first try. They treat AI like a collaborator, and they communicate with it. They give feedback, they refine, and they respond with things like, "This is close, but not quite. Can you make it simpler or more aligned with how I talk?" And that's how they communicate with AI. The back and forth isn't inefficiency, it's the work. So this is adaptability in action. You're not outsourcing your thinking, you're strengthening how you think. Okay, so the second behavior is learning how to notice what matters. This is adaptability because it requires you to stay engaged with information without immediately needing the answer. This is a hard thing. This is a really hard thing. So instead of asking AI, "What should I do?" you ask, "What do you notice? How can you help me think through this?" And then you decide what's important. So you're strengthening your judgment, not replacing it with a tool. So this is where a lot of people accidentally give away their power. They ask AI to decide for them. They say, "What should I do next? What offer should I create? What content should I post?" And when you do that, I think you skip the really most important step. Instead, adaptable people use AI to help them see their own work more clearly. They do things like paste in a few emails that they've written recently and ask, "What problem keeps coming up here?" They might paste in audience questions and say, "What patterns repeat? How can I help people better?" And they might paste in notes from client calls and ask what themes appear more often. AI shows them what's already there. It's really good at that, but then they decide what to do with it. That decision might sound like, "Oh, this explains why people keep asking me this question," or "This is the idea I keep circling around for a reason," or even better, "This is the direction I want to lean into next." That moment of recognition builds confidence. It's not because AI told them exactly what to do, but because they can see their own thinking more clearly. Okay, so the third adaptability behavior is small learning loops. And this is hard also for a lot of people, me included sometimes. These small learning loops are adaptability because it requires you to stay engaged with learning even when you can't see the full picture yet. So what most people do is they want to understand everything before they begin. Adaptable people often take one small action, notice what happens, adjust, and repeat. They're adapting as they go. In this you're building confidence through practice, not through certainty. This is where a lot of people go wrong. They think they need to understand everything before they begin, or they assume that if they don't keep up consistently, they'll fall behind. And that mindset creates a lot of pressure and shuts down learning and creativity and intuition. So adaptability will grow slowly through repetition, not urgency and pressure. So like one small experiment, one prompt you've tried, one small adjustment you've made, or like one insight that you carry forward. So no pressure and no perfection. So this is how confidence builds slowly over time. So I want to pause here and make this very real with a contrast. So imagine two people again. The first person sees a new AI feature and immediately wonders if they need to rebuild their workflow. They stop what they're doing, they research, they question their choices, they lose momentum. The second person notices the update and thinks, well, that's interesting, and they keep doing what they're doing. Later, when they have space, they try it on one small task, and they keep what helps, and they ignore the rest. Same update again, different outcomes. And the difference there is adaptability. Without it, every change feels like a huge disruption. With it, change becomes optional. And this is where the stakes start to really show up. When people don't have adaptability, they lose time. Not all at once, but in small pieces. They lose confidence, they feel dependent on experts, and they delay things that really do matter. When people do have adaptability, work feels lighter, decisions are clearer, and AI becomes really supportive instead of demanding. And that's why the skill of adaptability matters more than any specific tool, no matter how good the tool, because tools keep changing, but the skill underneath that you build doesn't expire. So in the next part, I'm going to show you practically how to use this skill and how to build it over time, what it looks like after a few weeks, and how to start in a way that feels really calm and doable. But, I'd see this happen all the time. People freeze. They avoid AI completely because it feels like too much to enter. People chase, they try to learn everything, bookmark everything, follow every update, and end up each week more tired than the rest. They collect information endlessly, but never integrate it. All of that kind of looks different on the surface, but underneath it's the same experience. For them, there's no solid ground to stand on. And without solid ground, even helpful tools start to feel heavy. Before we talk about how specifically to work with AI, we need to talk about how to stay steady when the world around us is changing. And that sounds counterintuitive, I know, because the people who thrive in moments like this aren't the ones who necessarily move the fastest. They're the ones who can stay clear and grounded as things shift all around them. So again, I want you to imagine two people. They use the same AI tools. They have similar experience levels. They're both really smart and capable humans. The first person is constantly resettling. Every update makes them question their workflow. They second-guess decisions. They delay launches because they think they should optimize one more thing. And their energy is kind of scattered, even though they're working hard. The second person barely tracks updates at all. They use AI roughly in the same way each week. They make small adjustments when needed. Over time, their confidence grows and their decisions feel clearer and their output improves. Same tools, really different experience for those two. And the difference, again, isn't knowledge, it isn't effort, and it is not being more technically adept, which is great news for most people. The difference is having a way to be steady when things change. So that's where adaptability comes in. And I want to be really clear what I mean by that. Adaptability is not speed. Adaptability is not speed. It's not about learning everything, and it's not about keeping up. It's the ability to stay clear, curious, and capable, even when the ground feels like it's moving. It's a way of thinking that doesn't collapse when the environment shifts. When you have that, change doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like something you can meet. But without it, even small updates feel overwhelming. And that's why so many people feel tired and worn out, even when they're excited about what AI can do. Their brains are trying to stabilize in a system that keeps asking them to reorient, and they can't do it fast enough. We can't do it fast enough, none of us. So if you feel stretched, distracted, or really quietly on edge, I want you to hear this. Nothing has gone wrong with you. You're living through a moment of crazy rapid change, and your nervous system is responding exactly as it should, exactly as our human nervous systems evolved. The work now isn't to push harder, it's not to chase faster, it's to build a steadier relationship with change itself. So that's what the rest of this talk is about. And that's where everything starts to feel lighter. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how adaptability builds over time and how to begin without overwhelm. So this is the practical stuff. Up to this point, we've talked about why this moment feels so intense and like what can actually help when things are changing. So now I want to talk about what this looks like over time. Because one of the quiet fears people carry is the idea that if they don't figure out AI really quickly, they'll miss their chance. That if they don't catch up now, they'll always be behind. And that belief creates a lot of unnecessary pressure. Adaptability itself doesn't work that way. It doesn't require a big leap. It doesn't require months of courses. It doesn't require a complete reinvention. It doesn't require you to become someone new. It builds slowly, and that's actually what's going to make it reliable for you. I want you to kind of imagine adaptability not as a switch you flip, but as a muscle you strengthen. You don't build it by pushing harder. You build it by orienting yourself and using it consistently in small ways. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They think their first step has to be impressive or visible or optimized. But the first step just needs to be repeatable. So let me show you what this looks like in real life. In the beginning, most people come to AI with a lot of mental noise. They open a tool and they already feel behind. They already wonder if they're doing it right. They already are comparing themselves to people who seem further along. So the first shift isn't productivity, it's relief. In the first week of building adaptability, people don't actually move faster. What they notice is instead the internal pressure eases a little. They stop asking themselves, am I using this correctly? And asking that every 5 minutes. So they start approaching AI with curiosity instead of a sense of urgency or panic. And that alone changes the experience. By the second or third week, something else starts to happen, and this one's really important. They begin to trust their own judgment again. They stop expecting AI to blurt out the perfect answer. They treat it as a draft partner, a collaborator, a thinking aid, a place to explore ideas out loud. And then they make decisions without second guessing every step. And that confidence kind of compounds. After a few months, the shift is huge. They no longer feel the need to chase every single update. They don't panic when a new feature drops, and they don't feel like they're falling behind if they skip a week of experimenting. They have a stable way of thinking about AI no matter what the tools do, and that's adaptability over time. And this is where I want to be clear about something. Adaptability is not about mastering AI. It's about building a relationship with change that doesn't exhaust you. And this is where the business impact becomes really real. When people don't have adaptability, they lose in small but costly ways. They hesitate to make decisions because they think more information will help. They rebuild systems instead of refining them. They delay launches because the tools don't feel settled yet. And they wait for clarity that never comes because they're looking for it outside of themselves. None of it feels really dramatic in the moment, but it all adds up. So when people do have adaptability, the opposite happens. They make decisions with less friction. They move projects forward without constant resets and rethinking. And importantly, they trust themselves to adjust instead of starting over. They use AI to support their thinking, not replace it. And that's what sustainable growth actually looks like. Sustainable growth doesn't look like speed or hustle or optimization at all costs. It instead looks like steady progress that doesn't burn you out. So I want to walk you through a simple daily practice that helps build this skill in a way that fits real life. It's not something you really need to do perfectly at all, but it is something you return to. So pick one task you were doing today. Not a special AI task, not a learning task, just something real, like maybe writing an email, planning an Instagram post, thinking through an offer that you were building, organizing your thoughts for a decision, planning lunch. And then ask AI for help with that one thing. And then do something people skip, give feedback. Tell it what feels off. Ask it to simplify. Ask it to match your voice. Ask AI to focus on what matters most to you. And then notice one thing in the exchange, one insight, one pattern, one small shift in clarity. And then carry that forward. That's it, probably less than 10 minutes. And that's how adaptability builds. Not through intensity, but through repetition and learning to trust yourself and your own voice. This practice does something really subtle but powerful. It teaches your brain that change is something you can work with, that you don't need to brace yourself every time something new appears. And over time, that sense of steadiness becomes your baseline. And that's really important because this world isn't going to get quieter. Change in tech is only getting faster and faster, but you can get steadier. And now, so I want to say something now that might sound surprising to an audience of people interested in AI. You don't need to be early. You don't need to be the first to adopt every tool. And you don't need to impress everyone with how advanced your AI workflow is. What you do need is a way to stay grounded as things evolve. And that's what keeps you relevant. That's what keeps you creative. And that's what keeps your work aligned with who you actually are. When you build adaptability into your business and your interactions with AI and your life, something shifts in how you relate to the future. Instead of feeling chased by it, you feel able to meet it. Instead of bracing, you feel really curious. And instead of rushing, you choose. And that's a real advantage. Okay, so before we close today, let me bring this thing all together. So we started talking about why this moment feels so hard. Your brain is responding to exponential change with a nervous system that is built for gradual change. And that mismatch creates pressure, and it is not your fault. So then we looked at what actually helps. Not more tools, not keeping up, but building adaptability, the ability to stay clear, curious, and capable while change keeps shifting rapidly. And finally, we talked about how adaptability builds over time through clear communication with AI, through noticing what matters in your own work, and through small learning loops that compound quietly without burning you out. So the practice is simple. Pick one small task, ask AI for help, get feedback, notice one insight, and then carry it forward. And it's a small thing, but that's how you begin to stop chasing and start building something that lasts. Okay, so I know what it's like to leave a session or a talk feeling inspired, but not sure where to practically begin. So I created something to help bridge that gap. It's called the AI Adaptability Starter Kit. It's 7 days to stop feeling behind and then start thinking clearly. And it's available inside of Adapt Lab on School, my online community. So it's not a course, it's not homework, it's a gentle structure that walks you through exactly what we talked about today. One day at a time, one small step at a time. Each day includes a really short exercise, a prompt you can use, and a space to reflect on what you're noticing. So you can move through it at your own pace. You can come back to it whenever you need to, and you don't need to do it perfectly. It's just there to support you. So if you'd like that kind of structure, I'd love to see you in Adapt Lab, my community on School. So now I will leave you with this. You're not late, you're not behind, You're living through a moment of rapid change. And the goal can't be to outrun it. We can't. It's impossible. So the goal is to stay present, thoughtful, and adaptable inside of that. So you don't need to chase the future. You just need a way to meet it.